Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Friday, October 25th. It's time for What Just Happened. As we look back at the insanity of the week, three great returning comedian champions. Carolina Hidalgo's back, comedian, podcaster, No Dogs in Space on the Last Podcast Network. Carolina, nice to see you. Thanks for getting up early because you're in California. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. No, I love getting up early for this stuff. I love discourse and debate. It's great.
That's what we're gonna have neither discourse nor debate.
I know
this is
that's
SiriusXM progress.
like,
a lot of echo chambers.
Not in the right
with
place
each other.
for that.
Right, a lot of nodding. Like, good point.
Okay, I can do
also, that. Brittany Brave coming to us live from Miami. Comedian, actress, writer, producer. She's been on TBS, MTV, SiriusXM numerous times, and will be in the New York Comedy Festival coming up next month in November. Brittany, nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. I like the lime green on you.
It's my Obama shirt.
Oh, nice.
Obama said knock you out.
Nice. Now all you need is the matching tan jacket and pants, and now you're fully in Obama mode.
Oh, dude. And look who's back. John Fugelsang has more titles by the day. Comedian, radio host, author. He's got a book coming out. He's one of the stars of the Stephanie Miller Sexy Liberal Tour. Of course, host of Tell Me Everything every night on this very channel from 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern time. John, congratulations on the book. It's so much work. I know you were doing it while hosting, while touring and everything. And it goes on sale, you're saying. Tell us quickly before we start talking.
I mean, it's not good. It's not released until next summer, but Simon & Schuster just told me to start telling people it goes on sale next week. So please, if you really like extremely delayed gratification, please, it's called Separation of Church and Hate. And it's a guide to how to use the Bible to beat up Christian nationalists and fundamentalists and fascists and flock fleecing Pharisee frauds. So it's for atheists and believers alike.
Wow, that sounds great. I look forward to getting it. I'm going to put my order in on the countdown. You know, the summer will be here before you know it. I don't know where I'll be living at the time, depending on this election.
Yeah, of course. I'm waiting to see where you wind up yourself.
Well,
especially once Susan Olsen becomes Secretary of State, it's going to be really dodgy for you Muslims. I'm just putting that out there.
A lot of stuff. Look, I really think some people talk Canada. I'm going to Jersey. I think that's pretty safe. You know, Bayonne at night, Moonachie. Like, who's coming to get me there? We have a strong group of people there. So we'll see. Let's talk about
Dean, just go hide out in a place where they adopt babies no one wanted. Republicans will never think to look there. You'll be safe.
I'll go there. All right, very good.
I was about to say, I don't think Jersey's safe. I just think nobody really wants to go there. So if so facto, now it's safe.
That's why it's safe. I don't care why it's safe. I just want it to be safe.
That's
okay.
That's
so if you're afraid to come to Newark at night, that's where I'll be living. So screw you, MAGA. So let's talk about. So this is the All-Star Salute. Donald Trump had someone who I'm not sure who it was trying to sing at an event, but we have Vice President Harris says Bruce Springsteen, Beyonce, and then the political stars, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Liz Cheney, all touring with her, doing all these things. So, Brittany, let me start with you. Does Beyonce have an impact? Do you think, does Bruce have an impact? Do any of the celebrities coming out have an impact on some level?
I think Beyonce always has an impact. I obviously disregard anytime anybody thinks that the government is controlling the weather. And then my exact response afterwards is it's not the government. It's probably Beyonce.
That would make sense.
I think Bruce's endorsement specifically has a big impact, and it's not just because of who he is culturally and musically, but I also think that he probably has a lot of boomer Republican conservative fans that, as much as they love him, are probably disappointed and or shocked by this endorsement, just because I think of my dad and my uncles who I know are voting for Trump, regrettably, but also idolize Bruce Springsteen. So I'm curious to see how they took that endorsement in, basically.
And also it's a Jersey guy. I mean, we love Bruce from being from Jersey. I live in New York, but Carolina, what about, is there a celebrity out there that if they endorse someone, you would think about it? Like, is there someone that you like so much that they endorse Trump, you're like, I got to think about this. This is kind of odd. Or the other way, like, that actually makes you say, I got to go out and vote?
I don't know. Actually, I don't think there is a certain celebrity, but I do appreciate them coming out. I know some people are like, this is all crap and this is all political theater kind of crap. But I do, I mean, watch Taylor Swift get a bunch of Gen Z people to go out and enroll to vote. And Bruce Springsteen being, I guess, the answer to that kind of older generation as well, being, if anything, of the kids and grandkids being like, you see, Dad, everyone else is voting for not fascism and you are othered. And maybe that will help. I'm not quite sure, but I do I always enjoy opening up a thing about Bruce Springsteen saying that he's not a fascist.
Right. He said yesterday that Trump's running to be tyrant and Vice President Harris is running to be the 47th president. So, John, where do you come down on the power of any celebrity, anyone like this who travels out there?
I mean, Dean, are you suggesting that Scott Baio, Ted Nugent, and Kurt Schilling aren't bringing in tons of new people for Trump that wouldn't have voted for him ordinarily? Are you suggesting their star wattage isn't doing it? I mean, Kamala Harris is campaigning with Springsteen and Beyonce and Eminem and Tyler Perry and Megan Thee Stallion, and Donald Trump is campaigning with Arnold Palmer's penis. So, I mean, you really, celebrities weigh in different ways. Did you see Jake Tapper ask Mike Johnson about the dead golfer's penis?
Yes.
Most awkward segment of the week. And then I realized I was watching two men whose names were Johnson Tapper. The Matrix is toying with us. The simulation is laughing at us at this point. That it's this kind of fascist, that it's this close. Do celebrities help? Yeah, but I think in terms of permission structures, Liz Cheney might help even more than Bruce Springsteen. I mean, I'm sure Bruce Springsteen helped John Kerry 20 years ago. I'm sure he helped Hillary Clinton. But in this case, this election, I think, is more about getting people off the couch than off the fence. I think most people have made up their minds, and anybody who hasn't made up their minds yet is probably confused by shiny things. So an endorsement from someone like Liz Cheney, who is a very evil person, but when you look at, Nikki Haley was still getting up to a third of the Republican vote in primaries in cities in red states 2 months after she dropped out. There are still many Republicans who will not vote for this racist reality show clown. It's also why Joe Biden won last time. Don't forget, Joe Biden won the presidency, but Democrats lost seats in the House, and we had to wait a month to see who was running the Senate. And that's because so many Republicans voted Biden at the top of the ballot and then just did R down. Don't be surprised if that happens again this year. Although what scares me more than anything might be a Kamala Harris presidency with a Republican Senate. I do think that these mean something. I don't think anyone's mind is going to be made up per se to vote for someone. But I think their mind might be made up to get off the couch and go vote for someone. I think Taylor Swift or Bruce Springsteen might compel someone to actually want to get in the game, even if their minds are already made up. Democrats' problem is enthusiasm. The racists and the fascists and the women haters, they all can't wait to vote. Sure. Democrats have got to get the rest of the world out there enthused.
Well, look, so Trump is going on Joe Rogan's show, Brittany, and he's done his whole bro vote.
That'll be a summit.
And it's funny because Rogan has been very critical of Trump in the past, and I'm sure he won't be critical to his face. Maybe he'll get high. I don't know what he'll do, but it's all part of Trump's bro vote. That's what they're calling it. And he's counting on young men. And I used to be a young man. Young men are the most unreliable, most irresponsible group of people. Like if Harris would have just sent them free pizza and pot on election day, none of them vote. They just stay home. But even then, they'll say they're going to vote. And Brittany, do you have confidence before I give you data? What is your sense about who votes more, young women or young men?
This has nothing to do with the election. I don't have confidence in young men as a straight young woman in her 30s who's painfully single. So you're not telling me anything when it comes to that. I think the bros are really guilty naturally of flocking in herds, and they have a group mind to a fault. So I guess if you can turn one bro, they may end up turning a couple bros. But yeah, it's not surprising to me that that's what he's appealing towards. I'm sure he also wants young men with a certain sense of athleticism so they can storm the Capitol again and defeat the enemies and get there even quicker and even stronger. Yeah.
That's a good point. Carolina, I mean, look, if these young guys are like, oh, we're going to vote for Trump. And then there's like Planet of the Apes is rerunning on cable, or, there's a Godfather marathon, it's easy to distract them. Like, I could vote later, and then it's Wednesday and it's too late. And I have to be honest, young men are the least reliable voting group based on data. Young women vote 11% higher in 2020 than young men. This is amazing. The media just keeps going. We'll get in a second. So Carolina, what is your confidence in guys? And we're talking like 18 to 20s. These are like the podcast listeners, and that they're actually going to come out in big numbers, get off their couch, stop watching television, put down the joint and say, let's go drive over and wait online for 3 hours to vote.
I don't know. I mean, as you said, like the statistics mean like they don't come out because of the whatever. Maybe it's this privilege of it doesn't really make a difference to them in the sense of their rights are not being threatened. So they are not afraid, and so they vote, they don't vote, whatever. And I think that's the biggest part of it, and that's why a lot of women are coming out to vote, is because our lives are being threatened. And this is an important vote. This is not like what they, a lot of these like young podcaster, far right people are saying like, oh, it's like a basketball game, like you're rooting for your team, and I'm like, there's no teams.
Yeah,
this is not a game, and they're trying to make it a game, and they're trying to be like, oh, you're losing and your team. I'm like,
That's
no,
right.
no, I'm not in a game with you. This is government. This is life, and this is the rights and the happiness of the citizens involved in this country.
Right.
I just had that thought the other day that I was like, everybody's treating this election like a bar fight that's about to break out over a finals in some sort of sport, in some sort of competitive sport. But yeah, 100%. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, when your fundamental rights aren't on the line and the government doesn't have an interest in controlling your body, I don't think there's a sense of urgency for you to get off the couch and go vote either, especially if you're straight and especially if you're white, which tends to fall into that bro vote category. Then your life probably won't change no matter who's president. And it's probably going to benefit if Trump is. So I also know a lot of guys in that bro category, not personally, but I end up being around them against my will, who have resigned, that they just think Trump is going to win. And they think they're also, they don't have a lot of hope in the election or hope in the idea of why it's important to vote. They think it's a wash. They think he's going to win. It's almost like he's their Tom Brady. Maybe a bad metaphor, but I think you know what I mean.
So John, where do you come down on the idea? I think it's such a great point Carolina and Brittany make, and it's their lives on the line. It's not a sporting match. It's not a bragging thing. Like when the New York Giants won the Super Bowl, I love the Giants. It makes me happy for a few minutes. It releases some chemicals in my brain. Yeah. But when they lose, I'm like, that sucks. But my life moves on. Women are dying. They're being killed by abortion bans, and there's zero doubt that they will impose national abortion bans, or at least make it harder and harder for women to control their own destiny and their own health care. So to me, I think women win this election. That's what I'm looking for, to see what the numbers come out before we even have the results on early voting, but also the night of. So what do you think?
I mean, the one thing I disagree with is that young men will be fine under Donald Trump. They think they'll be fine. Not if they have student loan debt, not if they have healthcare worries, not if they are subject to predatory lenders that Trump will unleash. And God help you, bros, if you get the wrong girl pregnant in the wrong state, because abortion bans hurt you as well. Let's not also forget that the child mortality rate has gone up in our country since the Dobbs decision, because women are being forced to give birth to fetuses that have no chance of survival, that then lead very short, agonizing lives where these parents have to hold this baby until it dies awfully and painfully, because they know it will, because doctors are too terrified to take care of women for fear that their hospital will be sued. We're not even having discussions about miscarriage care, discussions about stillbirth care, and those are completely tied into abortion care. But you can't even talk that way yet because people are so terrified. I want to stress that we're not saying all males support Trump, that all young men, because of course that's not true. It's only young men who find rape and stealing from veterans with a fraud online university and fraud charity and nonstop racism and nonstop lies acceptable. It's those men. And it proves testosterone rots the brain. But you nailed it with that study, Dean. I don't know why we don't talk about the fact that Donald Trump keeps courting people who are already voting for him. Every time a Democrat freaks out that Kamala Harris is bringing Liz Cheney on the road, and I know Liz Cheney's evil, but again, she's trying to expand the voting base. She's trying anything they can do because, unions and gay people and folks who've become citizens in the last few years and people who, don't hate women like it's a big tent. Trump keeps going for the same crew, the same bro dudes. And the study you cited, it showed that men 18 to 29 are still the least reliable demographic for voting. You mentioned women voted 11% higher in that age group, but also the same study showed that males in that age group said 34% said they're very likely to vote. 50% of women in that age group said they're very likely to vote. So Donald Trump can get all the support he wants, but as you pointed out, if the bros don't get off the couch, everybody wins. It'll be great. Yeah.
And I'm talking with Carolina Hidalgo, Brittany Brave, and John Fugelsang. Something being lost in all the media coverage about the gender gap is that they talk about the gender gap like, Vice President Harris is leading women by about 12, let's say most about 12, and Trump's about 12. And you see it's a wash. And I'm like, have you never Googled? Have you never done any research? Since 1980, women have been a bigger chunk of the electorate. If those numbers are equal, the women vote 10% higher. All women. That's when 2020.
That's right.
This is like typical. So to make that a wash, Trump has to be leading by like 15 or 18, and he's not. This is being lost in all of us. And white women, Trump won white women by 7% in 2020. Now he's dead even, or she's leading white women, even white women, to the point Brittany and Carolina are making. They get their lives or their daughters' lives, or their granddaughters' lives.
And if I may, Donald Trump won white women who were dead inside. Let's get it right. Okay. He won the majority of white women who were dead inside.
The trad wife.
Yeah.
He did. Yeah. Well, so look, we're the surprise. If Harris wins, it's going to be women that win the day. That's it. And by the way, of young men, she's still leading young men. It's that he's just the gap is a little smaller. She's leading young women by huge numbers now. It's off the charts. And she's leading young men, but there's this huge gap among younger people, and younger women tend to vote more. So let's talk about Donald Trump loves Hitler. And, it's not really a surprise. Like we knew this. This is a guy who's a big fan of the H-man. Like big fan, always like Hitler. I'm surprised he doesn't have his signs saying 8-8 at their rallies, which is their code for Heil Hitler, because H is letter 8. So they do 8-8 for Heil Hitler, the white supremacist groups. I'm just surprised we don't see that at their rallies all over the place. So Caroline, I'll start with you. John Kelly, former chief of staff, retired 4-star U.S. Marine Corps general, who Donald Trump now calls a degenerate and a lowlife, said that Trump said that he needs generals like Hitler, and said Hitler did good things. And Kelly's like, actually, Hitler didn't do, and even if he did any good things accidentally, that was never from a good place. It was sort of like a collateral thing. Like it was an ancillary thing of the big goal, which was really, really bad. And forget that Hitler's generals tried to kill him 3 times. That doesn't matter.
No, don't forget that. That's why Trump deserves generals just like Hitler had. Dean.
But they didn't succeed. They failed.
Well, I'm sure American ingenuity can do better than Operation Valkyrie and a shitty Tom Cruise movie about it. I'm sure American generals can blow up their own leader better than the Germans could. But go on, please.
No, mate, and the beginning of that movie is pretty cool, but then it kind of gets into like a lot of talky stuff.
And by the way, I'm not calling for any violence against Donald Trump. I don't want any violence. I want 3 ghosts to visit him on Christmas Eve. That's what I want. No violence against Trump.
Carolina, you review movies a lot. Did you ever watch Valkyrie?
I started it and I didn't finish it, just like their operation, unfortunately.
That was the operation.
Yeah, it was Operation Carolina Valkyrie.
Yeah. And so look, you've got Trump. What I like that John Kelly said, and this to me summed up everything, that he said about Trump. Trump is all but rejected what America is all about and what makes America America in terms of our Constitution, our values, the way we look at things to include family and government. And to me, a man who served for 45 years in the military, who literally had bone spurs and still volunteered to be in the Vietnam War and served in combat and then came back, went to officers candidate school and then became an officer and moved to a 4-star general whose son died in Afghanistan. This man's all about sacrifice. And he said, Donald Trump doesn't know what makes America America. And to me, it's sort of what Bruce said last night. I really love that. Brittany, I don't know if it's going to move anyone, but I thought it summed it up perfectly, the way I view Trump. You're muted. Brittany.
Yep. Sorry.
Go ahead.
That's a 2020 pandemic fumble right there. Leaving yourself on mute during a Zoom call, during a chat. Yeah, I think Trump is definitely going to try to be Hitler for Halloween. And I think he's just practicing now with a lot of his policies and his ideologies. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. He has this warped sense of what our country stands for and what it means to be the leader of our country. But it's not surprising whatsoever that somebody that he looks up to, that Hitler is somebody that he looks up to, and that's what he sees as being ultimate power and ultimate respect. And it's also like, it's so on a funnier, lighter note too. Like, I need people around me who are completely blindly loyal and just take me and accept me in everything I do. It's like, yeah, give us more evidence that you're terrible. The people around me need to be absolutely blind to everything that I'm doing and how evil I am. It's like Stockholm syndrome. Yeah.
It's also how I run my show, just so you know. I mean, poor Matt and Aaron who work as
it's
producers.
Effective.
Absolutely.
It's effective.
I make them do the whole oath thing. They'd have raised their hand. It's kind of awkward. And I do it like weekly. I'm like, do you still unconditionally loyal to me? And just like the Hitler oath. So
I thought it was weird the first time I did this show when you asked for a stool and blood sample, but I said, whatever you need, it's fine. It's fine.
we have
Just
to do
take my
certain things.
DNA.
I have to check your genes, just like Trump.
Right.
I got to make
Right.
sure you have good genes. If you don't have the good genes, you can't be on the
Superior
show.
DNA.
That's
Right.
it. John, what do you think? I'm sure you've talked about the Hitler stuff on your show the last few days.
Well, somewhere in hell, Hitler is so embarrassed that we're all comparing him to Trump. I want to point that out. And believe me, Hitler will take it out on Trump when he sees him. But, why do we compare Trump to Hitler? It's so unfair. I mean, he is a right-wing white nationalist who bans abortion. That's what Hitler did. Hates immigrants like Hitler, hates liberals, hates unions and collective bargaining like Hitler, hates LGBTQ rights like Hitler, big theatrical Hitlerian rallies where he promises to crush Marxists and restore us to our glory days, scapegoating a powerless minority as vermin and scapegoats and poisoning the blood of the nation. And like Hitler, Trump's strongest support comes from rural, socially conservative Protestants. And like Hitler, Trump pretends to be Christian. So, yeah, I mean, we could do it all day. There's so many parallels. I mean, I've got a long, long list I've come up with of all the different similarities. But, this funny thing is our right-wing guys are all going online saying, oh, John Kelly, why did he sit on this for 4 years then? Why is he only coming out now 2 weeks before an election? When the reality is John Kelly came out and said all of this in July of 2021. None of this is news. He's doing it again. These right-wing guys are angry because the news they consume never told them this the first time. They don't know the rest of us heard this 3 years ago because their news doesn't tell them a 4-star decorated general that Donald Trump hired as chief of staff said that Trump likes Hitler. Trump's dead ex-wife, who he raped, said that Trump kept a Hitler speech volume by his bedside. So, listen, I don't want to offend any of the Nazis that listen to your show, Dean, but it's so pathetic. And the most pathetic thing is, if John Kelly really cared, he would give a damn press conference right now and go on camera and take questions from reporters, and I mean today, about all of this.
And again, John apologizes to the neo-Nazis who love my show.
So sorry to all the Nazis out there who were offended, and the Klansmen. I know you're different groups. You just admire each other's work. I know.
So we have to do a break. If you need your sheets to be whiter than ever, make sure you get. Come on. You know how much the Nazis like me? They fabricated tweets that I was involved in terrorism in 2017, and I had death threats, and I had to sue the neo-Nazis.
That's right.
Andrew Anglin at the Daily Stormer, and I got $4 million. I got a judgment because I'm flush with Nazi cash, Nazi gold all over my apartment. They had no money. The judgment was to send a message that you go F yourself, Nazis. And so, Carolina, where do you come down? I mean, if Trump, and I got to be honest, John makes great points, and to me, I believe a lot of his base, they hear what we hear. And what's scary is they're like, I like that. I'm down with that. That's the more scary part. Because I have friends who literally don't pay attention to anything I just like Trump. I'm like, why? And I say things, I'm like, I don't know about that or whatever. Like, I just like, right.
By friends, do you mean male comedians, Dean? Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't really follow the news. I just like that he says what he thinks, and I don't really think.
It's male comedians and one female comedian. And I'm not going to say names. I don't even know if you know the person, but the point is, I have those conversations and I'm like, but what? And I go, but you seem smart. Like, I want to say that, but you seem bright. Like, your comedy is smart. How could you be like, and they're not like Trump. They're not going to rallies, but others, look, the MAGA core know exactly what he's saying. They love it. That's why they're there. They like Hitler too. They hate the brown people. They think, like he said last night, that America is the garbage can of the world, which I really think he was just looking around at his rally and going, look at these people. These people are the garbage can of the world. So Carolina,
that was being racist. That was talking about brown people.
Right, of course. And they love that. I mean, John, you know that. I know that. Let's not play games here. This kind of plausible, the guy at Wall Street, Bill Ackman, he doesn't care about the racism. Yes, you are giving the Winklevoss twins. Sorry, you're giving millions of dollars. You are buying the racism as well. I'm sorry. You don't just get him for his corporate policy bullshit. You know it's about the racism. We all know about the racism. And Carolina, that's part of it to me. The concern is really the MAGA is a modern day fascist movement. Like Trump is a fascist. 50% of people at ABC poll that came out today, 50% said he's a fascist. He can still win. That's the scary part. It's his base that makes him powerful. Without it, he's just a guy on the subway yelling shit.
Yeah, I mean, that is why he has the power, because the populism. Like, he has people behind him. Otherwise, all of these people in government would have kicked him out a long time ago and called him a crazy guy. But because he has this power, he has something that they want. And I don't think he's like America's Hitler. I think he's Hitler's wannabe. Like, he's a wannabe. Like John said, like, when they meet in hell, it's not going to be a regular toe-to-toe kind of Mortal Kombat thing. It's going to be a little pussy bitch and Hitler. And so it is, I don't believe that he is in that place. But of course, when we talk about Project 2025, that he is very much tied to. And when we talk about like the rest of the government, I mean, the Republican party and everybody who are using this, who are using Trump and Trump using them, in like, they kind of do this together. They're the ones who are the dangerous ones. Like Donald Trump, to me, he doesn't scare me. I don't like him. I don't like hearing his voice or anything. But what scares me is like people, the backers behind him, who are using this for their own gain. And everyone else who doesn't care or who thinks they're flippant about it and stuff, they're just going along with this crap too. It's always the go along to get along, as we know from like, our history books and everything. There's just going to be people who just want to just be contrarian, and there's nothing you can do about it. But the most important thing is, like, I think John and you, Dean, said, is just like get people off the couch, incentivize people who would have not normally thought about it, like, who would actually get them in the fields for a moment and let them see the real like facts and see what's really going on. And I understand that. I understand it completely, where I read a thing about Trump and his diaper, or there's a thing or whatever. And I'm just like, is that real? Like, that's crazy. But like, do I even want to look into that? Like, is that what I want to spend my Saturday doing? I get why people might feel like the media is trying to do a lot to your brain and it's exhausting. But at the same time, we can't get complacent. You got to go to the places where you need to go find out for real, like, what is going on, and avoid these extremes as best as you can, which I know we can't. I know we can't.
Right. Not on this show. You can't. On this show, this is what we're all about. We're about the experience. Talk radio. What are you kidding? Let's take let's take a quick break. We're going to come back with our friends Carolina, Brittany, and John to talk a lot more, including Charlemagne the God pressing Anderson Cooper to his face about CNN's bad coverage. And I was like, thank you, Charlemagne the God. Let's take a break. We'll be right back after this. And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. All three comedians stayed for a change. Carolina Hidalgo, Brittany Brave, and John Fugelsang are here to continue with what just happened. A lot to cover. Quick thing. I mean, look, do you want to just touch for a second on Trump at McDonald's? And then there was an E. coli outbreak at McDonald's. Any connection? Like
Dean, I want to say McDonald's has announced today, they're reporting that E. coli is infected with Donald Trump. It happened somehow. And we send thoughts and prayers to E. coli for a swift recovery.
The thing is, like, because this gets into Charlemagne the God with Anderson Cooper. The way the media covered that was like, what a genius. Oh my God. He served food at McDonald's. It was a closed McDonald's.
That's right.
It was all people pretend on the line that they screened, and they gave them food and took a photo op. And the corporate media, even on, they're like, oh, this was such a, not Fox News, even on CNN, and even some MS were like, what a smart, to what? Yeah, it got press. The people who like him. Other people, like, if your grocery prices are too high and that's really your issue, him working at McDonald's for 10 minutes does shit.
That's not true, Dean. He clinched the racist with type 2 diabetes vote with that appearance. Clinched it. I mean, like, he's going to win that demographic by double digits.
There was some good memes, though.
Reality TV guy trying to convince us Kamala pretended to work at McDonald's by pretending to work at McDonald's. That's it. Nothing for the minimum wage. I support a minimum wage as high as Donald Trump's cholesterol. That's my takeaway.
That was huge. I liked some of the memes, like Trump with the holding out the French fries and says, do you want lies with that? And I thought there was some good stuff there. So Brittany, I don't look, you're on the road, you're traveling all the time. I'm not sure how much you watch of corporate media. I get it. I watch more media outlets that are aggregators than watching it all the time, but it is very upsetting. And last night, Charlemagne the God, who's co-host of the Breakfast Club here in New York, but he's become really a national figure, right to Anderson Cooper's face, talked to him on CNN and called him out on the nonstop Trump coverage all the time. And he even said, look, in this interview, we're talking about Harris, and you made me go talk about Trump going on Joe Rogan. He goes, I want to talk about Harris. And Anderson Cooper's used the word bullshit, because that's bullshit.
Mhm.
I don't know if Anderson Cooper doesn't get that we all see that they are wall to wall Trump. It really is. And the coverage of Harris in the last few weeks is just negative, or he's gaslighting us. I don't know if he's oblivious or gaslighting. I don't get it. He just is part of that world and doesn't see what everyone else sees because everyone else knows CNN is not bullshit. It's bullshit. Anderson Cooper said bullshit. We know it is shit. So what's your take, Brittany?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there is an obsession with Trump, rightfully so, and his next move with everything. And I do think that mainstream and corporate media could probably do more to have some more positive bylines in regards to the Harris Walz campaign. I think that we talk about often how Democrats and liberals need to get louder and prouder, even if just a fraction more, just to level up with Republicans and conservatives. But Charlemagne the God, this is the same. He worked with Andrew Schultz on Flagrant, right? Like Flagrant's podcast, and didn't Andrew just have Trump on? So I'm sure his entire perspective is skewed, and then he went on intentionally to kind of ruffle these feathers and kind of push his agenda a little bit as well. So
maybe,
yeah, I think he went to be an intentional contrarian with that. And I mean, maybe that's what Andrew and Flagrant and everything that Charlemagne does is just to kind of like push back and ruffle those feathers. So it's not surprising to me.
Do you not like Charlemagne the God? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not a huge fan.
I'm not just saying I'm applauding this moment and his interview with Vice President Harris. He actually pressed her at times. I thought it was actually from a journalistic point of view, it was a pretty good interview. He did a long interview with her. I'm like, interesting. He asked questions that really were things out in the world of real voters, not right-wing things. Not like right-wing says this. He was saying that like he heard from other black men that I know I've heard too. People call my show. I'm like, he's actually asking things that are real here. So like to me, I don't follow his career about the other stuff. I have no idea. So again, let me do a disclaimer here. I've neither confirmed. No, I'm kidding. So John, what about you? What about you've taught me years ago that the corporate media bias is towards ratings. You were the first one that alerted me to that maybe 10, 15 years ago. I came on your show and sincerely, I'm not kidding around. You were the one that made me more aware of that. And over time, I've called it out more. I've written about it. I've talked about it on the show. I think this election cycle, it's been the most egregious for whatever reason. And their normalization of Donald Trump, a man who attempted a coup. They never mentioned like he has his rally in New York this Sunday. He's coming back November 26th. He's mandated by law for his criminal sentencing. No mention of that. Nothing. Zero. His coup, zero. His party in the January 6th terrorists, nothing. Like corporate media has normalized them.
The racist lies about the Haitians eating pets has disappeared.
Yep.
I mean, the mayor, the chief of police, the Republican governor all said it was a lie. The lady who reported it in the first place found her goddamn missing cat in her own basement. And yet the lie is allowed to be there because this kind of racism is acceptable to this many Americans, and the media does not care about asking follow-up questions. And I have to distinguish between the media and journalism whenever we have this conversation.
Sure.
Journalists have a responsibility to the truth. Journalists have a responsibility to call out those in power. Journalists have a responsibility to fight for knowledge and information and for the people. Media has none of those responsibilities. Media's responsibility, ratings, eyeballs, clicks. That's it. How can we charge an extra $2 for this diaper ad? That is media. Media's only responsibility is profit and shareholders being happy. That's it. So it's always a tug of war. I've worked at most of these cable news channels. There are many good journalists who work there. But again, media's job is profit, and profit-driven news is why we as Americans are what the Bible calls fucking stupid. Profit-driven news
Is that Matthew?
is the root of so many of our problems. And so when I look at this, I think about how the New York Times has these beautiful dreams at night of 2017 circulation numbers and how they remember Donald Trump, and Donald Trump doesn't get it either. I mean, we remember MSNBC cutting away from a Hillary Clinton speech to show an empty podium waiting for Trump to show up. It's hate watching. Donald Trump thinks everyone wants to see him because it's popular. No, liberals everyone watches him because they fucking hate the guy. You understand? Men who spent a lot of time with Sex and the City know what I'm talking about. It's hate. He's the True Detective season 2 of American politics. People watch just to hate. That's not the same as popularity. And we've seen that because the majority of Americans have voted against him twice. But you got to remember, it's the reporter's job to ask the tough questions if they ever get near this guy, which they've kept him from doing. It's the media's job to keep him on the air if they think that's what's going to make their ratings go up. And it sucks, but we can't let it make ourselves crazy. This is the system we're in, and we have to try to change it.
Sure.
I mean, can I just say the New York Post said 2 years ago that Donald Trump was unfit for office. Today, they endorsed him. Why?
Yep.
Rupert Murdoch hates Donald Trump, but he knows it would hurt his newspaper's circulation if they didn't endorse him. Rupert Murdoch does not want, Fox News does not want Donald Trump to be president. You got to remember this. They will make so much more money as the Hate the Black Lady channel than they will make for Defend What Racist Grandpa with His Dick Out Said Today channel. You know, Rupert Murdoch gave $1 million to Hillary Clinton. Rupert Murdoch gave 4-year deals to O'Reilly and Hannity the day Obama was sworn in. They want, it's the media game. Rupert's game is profit. So they want Kamala Harris so they can be the Hate Kamala channel and watch the money roll in.
Certainly. And speaking of Sex and the City, by the way,
yes.
It's playing on cable right now for whatever reason.
Really? Can we watch together, Dean? Let's do it together, please. I'll go by Magnolia and bring those macaroons you like. Let's watch, please.
I was watching the first season, episode 2, and like where Carrie meets Mr. Big, and I felt like I was watching American history come to life. I'm like, look, there's Big, and they just met. I'm like, I know where this goes.
Yeah, I know where it goes too.
Right. Yeah. But there was also something about it that was nostalgic and depressing because I was watching and I'm like, I had dreams then, you know, at that time when that was first on. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that whole show is a gay man's fantasia dream of what being a straight woman in New York was like. So, you know,
my dreams are different. I was like 25 years ago. I'm like, I was like at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to conquer the world, do all this stuff. But I'm here with you guys and I'm really happy.
Dean, I'm really sorry that you were reduced to us. Okay, you want to talk about it?
You're right.
Can I get you a counselor to speak with?
Let's start a therapy session right now.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, drag us all into your midlife crisis, Dean. This is great radio.
Who's it, Carrie? Who's this? Remember that?
Who's Samantha?
Dean Obeidallah's midlife cry for help, people. He's asking who's the Carrie?
Who's the Carrie?
Mr. Big?
That is such a desperate Miranda thing to say, Dean. Desperately Miranda.
My fiance came to America because of Sex and the City. And I'm not even kidding, because that's what she saw of America and New York back in the Middle East. And she goes, I want that life. She goes, women could be independent and single and you can be in your 30s and 40s and it's great and live this fabulous life. I'm not even joking. That was part of the reason she picked come here to New York. And she says to me, like, the advertising in New York, we should sue them for false advertising in America. She says they made everything sound great. You get here, it's a struggle like anything else. So
she must not have watched the episode when Carrie, a homeless man, masturbated on Carrie, and then she stepped in dog shit.
It was in the Middle East. They cut that out.
Subway. Right.
In the Middle East, it was just called In the City. There was no sex because it's not allowed to be talked about.
Not allowed. They can't do it.
It's an amazing thing to talk about. Sex is funny, and the city is funny. But Sex in the City, not funny. I don't know how it works that way.
What's the deal with the Sex?
Well, I like the second movie. I like the second movie where they go off to the Middle East, and you know, the show that hates women goes to the land that hates women. It was beautiful all around.
I saw my friend Dawood. A lot of friends I know were in that. It was also interesting how I met Sarah Jessica Parker one time at a Beto O'Rourke rally, a fundraiser at some rich person's small apartment before Beto was well known. And I met her and I said, you're the reason my fiance came to this country. And she just looked at me. I'm like, it's a long explanation, but I just wanted you to know that. And she was very nice. I'm
wow,
like,
Dean. I was just making a cheap joke. I'm
sorry,
really glad we took this,
John, I'm sorry.
This side trip.
Yeah, I just canceled my therapy session.
She just proclaimed herself to be the original childless cat lady on social media. She posted her endorsement of Harris.
Ah.
It was a poignant caption and picture with Cat in the frame. And she says, as the original childless cat lady in New York City.
I look forward to the tangents on this show. Anyway, this is more fun to me. Carolina, where were we? Oh, corporate media. Could they suck any worse? Anything you want to add to that, my friend? The idea of you work in independent media. I mean, you have a podcast. That's where everything is going. And these corporate media people have no one to blame themselves for the hasten and the demise of corporate media.
I haven't gotten my check from Russia yet. So as long as it doesn't clear, I guess I just don't have any talking points for the time being. Because that's where it's going, isn't it? I mean, that's where it's been, actually. Yeah. Never mind. That's just what I've been finding out.
You know, Ukraine's full of Nazis who elected a Jewish president. You're exactly right, Caroline.
There we go.
Dave Rubin. John, did you know Dave from comedy?
Did I know Dave? Dave was a guest on my show the first week we were on the air before he realized that fighting for LGBTQ equality didn't pay as well as being Tucker Carlson's pet gay.
Right. And when I knew him, he was a comic and he didn't come out.
I put him
And
on
we would have so many
stage all the time.
conversations about like things about he liked this women. He'd say these comments, and I don't know he was in his own mind, he was trying to come to terms with it, or he was beyond hiding. Like he was like
No, when I
making
met him,
fun of people who were. He was
when I met
making
him, he
fun
was
of a
hosting on
big
LQ.
comic.
He had
So
his own
that-
show. He had
right,
his own
that-
show on LQ when
I knew
first met
before
him.
that.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I knew him when we opened mics at Gladys's here in New York.
I
And there was
knew him
another
as a
comic
closeted, self-hating Nazi homosexual.
No, no, he was a closeted guy who would almost make fun of the comics who were openly gay. That's my memory of him. That's the
Wow.
weird
Well,
thing.
guess what? He bought a house in Florida last year for the big Ron DeSantis presidential year. So enjoy your neighbors. I'm sure they'll be happy to have you. Yeah,
All right,
I mean that guy.
Carolina Hidalgo, Brittany Brave, and John Fugelsang. Let's talk about someone that I think is America's villain, the Minister of Propaganda for Donald Trump, Elon Musk. I really think Elon Musk is a bad influence, a bad person. We learned today, for what it's worth, he's had numerous conversations with Putin, but he has so much business with China. He never criticizes China publicly. Never. They're his partner in China, literally his partner. And we turned out now, according to reporting, he donated nearly $120 million legally to Donald Trump's his own super PAC, but to help Donald Trump. There's so much here to unwind, but to me, the main thing is we got to get big money out of politics. And I know there are people on the right as well that agree with this. This dilutes our voice. But I think Elon Musk is a villain. I really do. Carol, Brittany, where do you come down on Elon Musk? How do you view this guy?
Well, first things first, and not to be vain and lean into aesthetics, but it does look like he's never spent more than an hour in sunlight. He looks like he's severely lacking in vitamin D. Sorry, that's a low blow.
Are you suggesting he might be a vampire? That's fine. That would make actually some sense to me on some level. He's the undead.
Yeah, that would make a ton of sense. And he is
also
dead inside as well.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been a fan for obvious reasons. And I think definitely with his takeover of Twitter and his X platform and how all of a sudden everybody can be verified, and misinformation, if you could believe it, is even more rampant than it was before. With the COVID vaccines, with the pandemic, with politics, you name it. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that there could be more attention paid to the fact that he is at the front lines and he is peddling and funding all of Trump's efforts. And he's a bigger enemy than we give him credit for. But also, I think part of the reason why that we don't take him as seriously is because, much like Trump, every time he opens his mouth, it's something outlandish, like what he said to Taylor Swift, where it was, didn't he say something disgusting to Taylor Swift, like, don't worry, I'll give you a baby? And
he did say that, which was
I would pay money, like celebrity deathmatch style, to see Travis Kelce physically dominate him. But that would be great. I'm sure CNN will air that around Christmas. Yeah,
that would be a ratings bonanza. I would so enjoy seeing that. Carolina, where do you come down on Elon Musk? I view him as, honestly, it's like the Gilded Age with the wealthy, the billionaires of their time who had too much power politically. The Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, J. Pierpont Morgan, these kind of people, where we need a backlash. We need a progressive movement to come back and change this, but our Supreme Court won't allow this. That's part of the problem. So what do you think about the Musk man?
I mean, the Musk man, as we know, yes, you're right. He is a villain. He's ruined my love of dad bods and ruined a lot more than that. But, and also it is true. Like what I keep thinking every time I read an article on what Elon Musk is doing or what he's saying, I keep thinking like this, like who owns him, or who does he own? Who's like, where is ladder going? Because it's very like interesting to see where this goes. Cause he feels owned to me, but other times he just seems like some sort of lunatic who's just going off because he can. And I honestly have not followed his career very much, except for what's going on recently in the last year. So his rise from being Tony Stark to what he is now is just, to me, was a very crazy thing. And anyone who drives a Tesla now is also a very crazy thing now, like, especially here in California. So I don't know what to even think of it. I don't even know where he's going to go. He's probably just going to just slink off, because I know what you're talking about like William Randolph Hearst, who's like, pushing like, hey, we need to go to war because of communism, and just like communists are the real problem. And just like today, they're saying like the immigrants are the real problem. This is all propaganda. They're all pushing something. He says he's going to be fucked if Trump loses. I believe him, I guess. Who owns him? That's my question.
There's a lot of big questions. He is a villain. To me, there's something unnerving about him, I think. What about you, John? Where do you come down on the Musk man before you
Are we
wrap up?
talking about apartheid nepo baby? It's not just that he wants to control governments for his own power to deregulate his industries, even if it means destroying democracy. It's that he's lame. He's a billionaire who wants to be Joe Rogan when he grows up. It's all about his tiny, tiny, frail male ego, like Trump. He wants to be Lord of the Bro Dudes, but instead he's like the worst Bond villain ever. I really want you to vote for Trump, and if you sign this petition that you love the First and Second Amendment, I might give you $1 million. Just saying. And I'm not creepy. You're creepy. I'm not creepy. You're creepy. Twitter's better. By the way, Twitter is much better without advertisers. What? He's like the clunkiest Bond villain. No, I just totally owned you, Mr. Bond. Yes, I ratioed you. How do you like it? Do you have can you cope? Cope, Mr. Bond. I ratioed you. Ooh. I mean, he's just fucking goofy, Dean. And it's such
I don't like him. That was a good impression.
Such mediocre, low wattage men are the ones tearing down our society. America deserves grandiose fascists. We deserve Mussolinis and Hitlers. Instead, we get these fucking Fredos and Shemps. Please, God, send us more competent fascists.
I'm with you. All right. Before we run out of time, I just want to give everyone a chance to plug what they're working on, where they can follow you. So, Brittany, where can people follow your work? I know you're on the road all the time as a comic.
Yeah, I'm Brittany Brave on all social media, and I'll be back for New York Comedy Festival. I have my own show Thursday, November 14th at Asylum Theater, right in Gramercy, right in the city. And yeah, Brittany Brave on everything. And yeah, I'm doing my part I'm a blue dot in my red hell of a state here in Florida. I'm
sorry, but I hope somehow Rick Scott can be defeated. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah.
Carolina, what about you, my friend?
You can find me on Instagram. That's the only social media I have left that I have not gotten rid of completely. Carolina Danger Hidalgo. I got No Dogs in Space, music history podcast, and there is a lot of history involved. We have a whole series on krautrock and how the fall of the Nazis and the rise of the children of the Nazis being like, we reject your culture, we start our own, and we're going to be Kraftwerk. Check that out. It's really, really good. And as well as we have an upcoming Washington, D.C. music scene that we are talking about starting from the 40s. So a lot of it is very much to do with what's going on in this political climate. It's going to be really, really interesting. So check that out. No Dogs in Space on Last Podcast Network.
I will check it out. And John, what about you, my friend?
Thank you for having me with two brilliant, funny women. I'm not worthy. Thank you guys for making me laugh. I follow your show, Dean, so you can hear me at What the Fuck O'Clock right here on SiriusXM Progress. If you could also hear us as a podcast the next day, the John Fugelsang podcast, which is highlights of the show. The big, our final date on the Stephanie Miller Sexy Liberal Save the World comedy tour this year is going to be next Saturday, the 2nd at the Orpheum in Los Angeles. Stephanie, Hal Sparks, Frangela, and me, and our special guests will include Martin Sheen, future Senator Adam Schiff, and Last Jedi Mark Hamill. They'll all be joining us on stage next weekend. And I got a book coming out next year, but I'm told to whore myself because it goes on sale next week. So thank you, Dean, for all you do.
Thank you. That's great stuff, folks. If you're in LA, get out to see the show. I saw it in New York. I was part of the talkback afterwards. It's a great, great comedy show. You guys were all great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.